Hi, and welcome to Real Life with Jennie. My name's Jennie Senapataratna. Grab your favorite drink and a snack, and we will get started. Today, I have my absolute favorite tea, my go-to when I'm having a bad day, Lady Grey tea, and I have some ear pop popcorn with real butter. Could life get any better? Right? Well, let's get real. So today, we are celebrating 2 years of the Real Life with Jennie podcast. Woohoo! I mean, like this is where I should be able to insert applause or whatever. Yeah, still not there, guys. Anyway, 2 years I've been doing this podcast, and that just seems incredible to me. Whenever I hit an anniversary or a birthday of anything, really, I tend to look backwards and I tend to see where I came from. My husband and I have been married for 25 years, and always around our anniversary, I think about what it was like when we got married and what kind of chaos was happening. And I remember, if I can get through this wedding, I can get through anything. Yeah. The wedding was nothing, right? You realize that 25 years later that you go through a lot of things and a lot of life has changed. I look identical to when we got married, right? Oh, anyway, I was a young 20-year-old when we got married, so things have changed a smidge, just a smidge. But, I started thinking about 2 years ago when I started this podcast. And it's really funny because it comes back to another anniversary. So in July, we will have started our ministry Christ Connection 17 years ago in July. Before that, we were a church. We had a church plant in our area, and we'd been running it for 6 to 7 years. And things just happened, and we ended up closing the church. Now, what's kind of bizarre about that is my husband and I were sharing a cell phone at the time. I know, how weird is that? Now I'm not sharing my cell phone with you. But we were sharing a cell phone at the time. And the voicemail was for our church. So if anybody wanted to get a hold of us, that was the main phone number we used. So not only was it my phone, it was my husband's phone and the church's phone. And I drove away. In fact, I'm not even sure I didn't do it in the parking lot that evening, the last night that we had church. And I changed the voicemail on that number. And I said, "Hi, this is Christ Connection. You can reach us, leave us a message." I don't remember what I said. But the funny thing is my husband still has that voicemail from 16, 17 years ago on his voicemail. So when I call him to leave a message, which I never do, right? I don't ever leave a message, but there's my voice. So he actually had a pastor call him, get a hold of the voicemail and say, you should put your wife on your podcast. She's got a really good voice. And thus the little seed was planted for the podcast. My husband had a podcast for 2 years before I started. His is Christ Connection, if you're interested. He interviewed people, and really, there's some phenomenal stuff on his podcast. It's really deep, and I just thought I can never be Kevin. Kevin is so intellectual, and he knows the fundamental truths. He's just one of those guys that just he lives, breathes, and he's just so amazing. And then there's me, who I'm here we are, what are we doing today? He's so organized. He's a 5-year plan. He knows what he's doing. And I'm what day is it? We're just opposite. So this little seed was planted right around the time I was laid off. And I gotta be honest with you, I really thought when I got laid off that I would be a little bit further along in my healing process than I am. Honestly, I'm still a little angry, and I still question some things with that, and have some, things I still am trying to resolve and work through in my own life. And there's still some pain and rejection there that I really thought would be gone, because life is pretty good, but I still have that even 2 years later. So I don't think I'm abnormal. I think we are so hard on ourselves to heal from something that's traumatic and move on. And that's not the way real life works. Real life is one day at a time. one healing moment at a time, one time stepping in with Jesus and saying, Lord, I need you today. Anyway, that's a side note, but I'm looking at the 2 years ago, and this little seed was planted that I should I should be on Kevin's podcast. And I had been on Kevin's podcast once at that point. It was really quick because when the two of us were together, like his episodes were normally an hour, and when he did it with me, it was like 15 minutes. Here we are, same thing, same Bat Chan. Anyway, never mind. But the seed was planted. And so I was like, Lord, like, what do you want me to do? I lost my job. What do you want me to do? I remember that sense of just, you should do a podcast. And I was like, I went to Kev and I said, I think I'm supposed to do a podcast. And he kind of looked at me like, okay, that's interesting. Really supportive, probably and I was like, but I don't want it to be anything like your podcast. I want a community. I want a group of people that can really come in and ask for prayer and be something, and it be really authentic, and it not be something that was stuffy and really super religious, more about relationships with God and relationships with one another. And it was just so different in my mind. And that is really how Real Life with Jennie started. It was going to be tea time because I love tea. It's my relaxation moment. I know you realize that when you listen to this, but when I drink tea, it is to get away from everything and to let it go for just a minute or two. Just to let all my problems go, set them aside, and drink something nice and hot, and just pretend that it is okay. So I wanted something like that. So that's really how Real Life with Jennie started. And now here we are, 2 years later. Many, many episodes later, we've been downloaded in 49 states in the United States, in 47 countries around the world. We have thousands of downloads. And honestly, thank you for listening. It is super humbling that you even listen to this. Maybe you just download it and I'm just talking to myself. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But I just am really grateful that you're still listening. But really, what I wanted to come on and say this week was, when you hear that still small voice, or you hear an encouragement and it sticks with you, because that stuck with me, that, boy, I really like Jennie's voice. Stuck with me, and it didn't go away, and I knew that God had something special. In fact, when I was in high school, we had a career day, and this guy came to our school, and he was part of the radio, and he was one of the big radio guys, and so he was talking, and I was asking questions because I thought being on the radio would be the coolest job ever. And he said some words that were super discouraging and kind of like, honey, you're not cut out for this. I'm sure he didn't mean it the way he actually said it, now that I'm like an adult, knowing I would never say that to a child. But he was like, yeah, you're really not smart enough to be are you a good student? And I'm like, no. And he's like, yeah, then you can't be a radio person. Unless you're a good student, you can't be on the radio. And so I was super discouraged because I thought that could be something, because I like to talk, but not necessarily with people. That sounds really bad. I love people. I really do. I'm just super shy, and people make me super nervous, and I always feel like a complete buffoon, and I'm always saying the weirdest things, and then people look at me like, oh wow, that's interesting, Jennie. It just makes me nervous, and I can do that here, and I don't see your reaction. I don't see how crazy it really is. But God implanted in me at a very young age that this is something that I really would love to do. And so when God said that to do the podcast, it was super crazy and super scary, because you know what? Spoiler alert, podcasters don't actually make money. I mean, some do, and bravo for you, and there are several people that can, but very, very, very small percentage of people make a lot of money with this. And so for me, it's not about that. For me, it really is about meeting you. And when I come to your church and we talk about what's going on in your life, and when I hear that you have listened to things, and you're so encouraging online and in person and with notes, and people that send tea and people that have sent jelly beans. And like, you've been so encouraging that I've kept going. But I think that God talks to us all in very different ways. And when you hear that still small voice or that prompting of a crazy dream that makes no sense, I want you to rethink that. I want you to go and say, God, am I going to go after what you have implanted in my life? Am I going to go after the dream that you've given me? Or am I going to continue living in the lifestyle that I'm living that I'm not happy? Now, am I perfectly happy? No, not all the time, right? Of course not. No one is. But I am finally doing something that I absolutely love. And honestly, I am the kind of person that whatever job I have, I'm pretty happy because I like to be busy and I like to do things and it's really fun for me. But I feel like someone out there today is saying that is a crazy dream. I can't do it. I can never do fill in whatever God's telling you. I can't do it. Jennie, just because you did doesn't mean I can. And now I can say 2 years later, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can follow the dream God has designed specifically for you. I want you to go after it. I've known so many people that have started going back to school for the dream that they have that really is kind of maybe doesn't make a lot of sense to everybody around you, but it is your dream. Your dream does not need to be justified by everybody else. The only way someone can kill your dream is if you believe what they're saying. And we need to stop believing what other people are saying and start listening to your own self and to what God is saying and step out. Let's step out. Like if all the Real Life with Jennie listeners listened to this podcast and made a change in their life and did something and went after the goal or the dream that they have and took that still small voice, we would change the world. One crazy dream at a time. So this week, what are you going to do? Pray. Ask God what that crazy dream is. What's a first step? You don't have to become a doctor tomorrow. You take the first step towards that, which I would have no idea what that is, but maybe you do, right? Maybe you have a big dream in your life that you've given up on and you've walked away from. Is it time to go back to it? Is it time to go back to that teenage dream that God implanted in your life that you set aside because of all the situations in your life? And God designed you to be you and specifically exciting, has a dream and an accomplishment that will, together, all of us can change the world. And I'm really excited for that. Well, you can find us at Real Life with Jennie on Instagram and Facebook. Come on out and join our community. I would love to pray with you, to celebrate things that are going on in your life, and just really be a community. That really is my heart. And when I come to your church, give me a big hug. I would love to see you and hear what God's doing in your life. Or you can find us at christconnection.cc/Jen. All of my information is there, and I would love to hear from you then too. Let's go out and follow the dream that God has given us. Happy anniversary.